Marcus makes $10,000 a year as an anesthesiologist. He hasn't upgraded his car in 9 years. His college roommate makes $80,000 selling software. New BMW every 3 years, watch collection growing on Instagram. One of these two men has a net worth of $1.8 million, the other has less than $12,000 saved. Take a guess which one it is. You're probably wrong. That's the strange thing about wealth building in this country. It's silent. It doesn't post. The people who look rich are usually financing the appearance of financial freedom, and the people who actually have money look almost forgettable in public. There's a psychological gap between those two paths, and once you understand it, you'll never look at a luxury purchase the same way again. I'll walk you through exactly where that gap comes from. But first, I need to show you what Marcus has been quietly buying instead of a new BMW. Because the list isn't what you think. And by the end of this video, you'll understand which single purchase on it matters more than the other 9 put together. Here's what you're going to walk away with. Not another lecture about cutting your Starbucks budget. That advice died a long time ago, and frankly, it always felt like a distraction from the real conversation. This is about the specific, deliberate financial decisions wealthy people make instead of the ones that make them look successful. And at least one of these is going to make you a little uncomfortable because odds are you're doing the opposite of it right now. Let's start with the first one, freedom. Not the abstract kind, the kind you literally purchase back with money. Marcus pays a service $60 a week to handle his groceries, his laundry, and his errands. His roommate refuses to spend a dime on that. I'm not paying someone to do what I can do myself, and instead spends 6 hours every weekend running his own errands, detailing his own car, standing in his own lines. 6 hours a week, 52 weeks a year, is over 300 hours annually. Marcus spent that reclaimed time last year building a side consulting practice that now generates an extra $46,000 a year in passive income. His roommate has a spotless BMW and an empty investment portfolio. This is the first principle almost nobody teaches in personal finance. Your hours are finite, but your earning potential isn't. The moment you buy back time and reinvest it into something that compounds, you've made a trade most people never even realize is available to them. The second one sounds painfully boring, and that's exactly why it works. A proper insurance policy. Term life insurance. Umbrella liability coverage. Nobody's filming a YouTube short about their disability insurance. But here's a story worth sitting with. A woman in Denver, mid-30s, runs a small marketing agency, gets into a car accident that isn't her fault. Should be simple. Except the other party's medical costs blow past her basic policy limits, and now she's the one being pursued for the difference. A difference that could have wiped out 6 years of savings in one afternoon. She hadn't upgraded her coverage because it felt like throwing money away for something that probably won't happen. One bad Tuesday nearly erased her entire financial foundation. People serious about wealth building buy protection against the catastrophic event nobody wants to imagine, because they've actually run the numbers on what one disaster does to a balance sheet. It's not thrilling. It's insurance against ever having to start completely over. The third one is where this gets personal for a lot of you. Financial literacy. Paid for, not stumbled into. The $1,500 course. The mentorship call that costs real money. The book that actually gets finished instead of just purchased and shelved. There's a line from Rich Dad, Poor Dad that reframed this for me the first time I read it. The rich don't work for money, they make money work for them. And that skill has to be learned somewhere, because school never teaches it. Most self-made millionaires didn't inherit wealth. They paid, in time or in dollars, to compress decades of trial and error into months. Meanwhile, most of us will drop $220 on a weekend without a second thought. But a $300 investing course that could reshape our entire income trajectory? Suddenly, we need to think about it. Interesting how the math changes depending on what the money's actually buying. If you're already spotting which one of these you're doing, or not doing, drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and honestly, it's shaping what I make next. The fourth thing is health. And I don't mean an unused gym membership. I mean the annual physical people skip because they feel fine. I mean the dental cleaning pushed back for the third time because work got busy. Here's the reframe that changed how I think about this entirely. Every dollar spent on preventative healthcare is a dollar protecting every other dollar you will ever earn. You cannot build long-term wealth from a hospital bed, and you definitely can't grow a retirement account while managing a health crisis that could have been caught early. High performers treat checkups and sleep like non-negotiable board meetings. It isn't vanity, it's risk management for the one asset every other asset depends on. You functioning. Number 5 is real income-producing assets. This is a different animal from vague investing. I mean a rental property that cash flows $500 a month after expenses, a small equity stake in a friend's growing business, a dividend-paying position that pays you whether or not you show up to work tomorrow. Marcus bought a small multifamily property 5 years ago, lives in one unit, rents the other two. His tenants effectively cover his entire mortgage every single month. His roommate's BMW, meanwhile, lost close to 40% of its value the second he drove it off the lot. And it'll keep losing value every year he owns it. One of these purchases builds equity and produces monthly cash flow. The other is a depreciating liability with a nice interior. Same size payment leaving the bank account. Completely opposite direction of wealth. Now here's the turn. The part that actually flips this entire video on its head. You'd assume this list is an argument against luxury. It isn't. Wealthy people still buy nice things. Marcus bought a Rolex 2 years ago in cash, no financing. But notice the sequence. He bought it after the rental property was cash flowing, after the emergency fund was fully funded, after the insurance was locked in. The watch wasn't the goal, it was the reward sitting on top of a financial foundation that was already solid. His roommate bought the reward first and is still trying to build the foundation underneath a car payment he can't undo. That's the entire difference between looking wealthy and being wealthy. And it comes down to one word: sequence. The sixth thing is legal structure. An LLC, a will, a basic estate plan, the unglamorous paperwork that protects what you've actually built. Most people under 45 in this country don't have a will. Not because they can't afford one. A simple one costs less than a nice dinner out for two. But because thinking about it feels uncomfortable. People focused on real wealth building don't skip this step. They treat estate planning as insurance for their name and their family's future, not just their bank balance. The seventh one is underrated, and it's the people you surround yourself with. A fee-only financial advisor instead of your cousin's insurance guy. An accountant who actually returns your calls before April 14th. A mentor you pay monthly for direct access to their thinking. There's research in behavioral economics that stuck with me for years. Proximity to certain financial habits is one of the strongest predictors that you'll eventually adopt them yourself, often without even noticing the shift. You don't rise to the average of your paycheck. You rise to the average financial habits of the 5 people you talk to most. People serious about financial independence will literally pay to be in rooms with people who think several steps ahead of where they currently are. The eighth thing is boring in the best possible way. A high-yield savings account sitting quietly in the background, doing nothing exciting, earning real interest instead of the 0.801% most checking accounts offer. Nobody brags about their emergency fund at a dinner party, but it might be the single quietest form of financial freedom that exists because it means the next emergency isn't a full-blown crisis. It's just an inconvenient Tuesday. A woman I know who built a home cleaning business from a single client into an 11-person operation over 9 years, told me once that the year she finally hit 6 months of expenses in reserve was the year she stopped feeling like she was one bad month from collapse, even though her monthly income hadn't actually changed. Same cash flow, completely different nervous system. Number 9 is tools that generate income, not tools that just generate attention. A laptop that lets you actually run a side hustle versus the newest phone with a camera you'll never fully use. A course hosting platform versus a home theater upgrade. The question people building real wealth ask before almost any purchase isn't, "Can I afford this?" It's, "Does this make me money, save me time, or protect what I've already built?" If the honest answer is none of the three, it's not automatically the wrong purchase, but it lands in a different mental account. It's a reward, not a strategy. And number 10, The one that quietly ties all nine together is optionality. The ability to say no. No to a job that's draining you for a paycheck that no longer justifies it. No to a client who doesn't respect your time or your rates. No to staying somewhere that stopped working years ago. Money, structured the way we've just walked through, buys you leverage in every single conversation of your life. That's the actual finish line. Not the car, not the watch, not the credit score flex. It's the ability to walk away from anything that isn't serving you, because you're not one missed paycheck away from disaster. So here's what sits underneath all 10 of these. Wealthy people aren't smarter than everyone else, and most of the time, they're not luckier either. They've simply rearranged the order of operations, foundation first, reward second, while everyone else got sold the reward first and spent a decade trying to retroactively build a foundation underneath a car payment and a credit card balance they can't undo. Marcus still drives that same car, by the way. Someone offered to buy it off him last year for more than it's worth because it still runs like new. He said no, not because he can't afford something newer now. He absolutely can. He just doesn't need the car to say anything about him anymore. That part of his identity got settled somewhere else, a long time ago. If even one of these 10 landed differently for you, you probably already know which one it was before I finish the sentence. That's usually the one worth starting with. Not all 10 at once, just that one. If this video added value to your day, hit like, share it with your loved ones who need this, and subscribe for more insights. I'll see you in the next one.